Hi everyone, my name is Tracy Hackshaw. I am a government professional. I was vice chair of the GAC from 2013 to 2015, and I do work in government still. And I'm here to tell you about the GAC working groups as requested by Albert Daniels of ICANN. Hi, Albert. So the GAC organizes its work mostly in plenary sessions at the ICANN meetings. That's face to face at the 3 meetings per year. But there's a lot of intersessional work that happens at the ICANN meetings as well. And those meetings tend to provide a platform for the working groups or the intersessional work to report on. There are several working groups right now in the GAC, and the way you locate them is by going to the GAC website, which is gac.icann.org. Click on GAC Work. There's a tab called GAC Work, and you'll see there GAC working groups. On the working groups page, there are, I think it's 7 working groups, and each of those working groups are open to GAC members to participate in simply by writing to the GAC Secretariat once you're a GAC member. If you're not a GAC member, obviously you still have to write to the GAC chair to join. So to join the working groups, we have the GAC GNSO Consultation Group on Early Engagement. That's a working group that's been going on for some time. And what that does, it looks to ensure the GAC gets involved in the PDP process. This is the policy development process at an early stage. That's been going on, I think, for a couple of years, and we've begun to see some fruits of that labor, in that the GAC has been participating a little earlier in the PDP processes, especially as it relates to the UGTLD reviews and recently the new RDS environment that's being discussed today. It's all part of a larger process to ensure the GAC gets involved in the process earlier, so that when the policies are prepared and they're ready to go to the board, the GAC doesn't have has a short opportunity to comment, and that presents a problem, because at that point the GAC is perceived as an obstacle or a showstopper in some cases. So having the GAC involved very early in the process is very helpful. There's a working group on underserved regions, which is one that's very close to my heart because that's one that I was a co-chair for. And that working group is seeking to ensure that there is a larger representation of GAC members from underserved regions, mostly from the African, Caribbean, and Pacific areas, but as well as from Central America and other regions like Southeast Asia, which don't ordinarily participate in GAC working groups or GAC meetings. That working group is looking to provide, on the one hand, outreach and full engagement utilizing ICANN staff to these regions, and to ensure that they are well equipped to participate more fully in the GAC processes through providing capacity building sessions, training, and directing them to perhaps material that they would not otherwise follow as just a GAC member. So joining our working group will provide you with that opportunity on the one hand, as well as being part of the process to ensure that GAC members are more well informed on the other hand. There's a GAC working group to examine the protection of geographic names in any future expansion of GTLDs. That working group is following on the recent UGTLD process where we had a few issues. That working group is looking to ensure that any new process would seek to protect geographic names that are normally owned by countries that are not currently on any list. That may be, such as in the case of Amazon, the Amazon rainforest or the Amazon River, which wasn't on any list per se. So that working group is seeking to try and establish procedures and rules to protect those names, and push that forward to the GAC main sessions, and then eventually to the wider ICANN community for discussion. Of course, there are many other working groups dealing with similar issues in the ICANN world, so we are ensuring that those working groups work together so that they don't work at cross purposes. There's a major working group that was established recently on human rights and international law, pretty self-explanatory, mostly led by the European community who see this as a major issue for the next dimension of the internet, ensuring that human rights are protected on the internet, ensuring that international laws are respected in the domain name system. So there's a working group on that today, and the work is very aggressive and very focused on trying to ensure that people who are participating in the domain name system are in fact well protected, the human rights are protected. Relatedly, a GAC working group on public safety, that's in partnership with what was previously called the Law Enforcement Association, but now it's been dovetailed into this public safety working group under the GAC, where law enforcement officers in the various jurisdictions, territories, are working together with the GAC representatives to ensure that there's better public safety protection in the domain name system, at the level of the at IP addresses, at names, and ensuring that we are securing the internet at the very start, at the root level or the root server level, as opposed to waiting for it to emerge in other issues, as you know, phishing and brute force attacks and so on, are basically done at a DNS level. So that working group is very aggressively trying to protect and ensure that the DNS is secure from a law enforcement principle. There are two more working groups that are somewhat more operational. There's a GAC working group on operating principles, which is looking to review the GAC's own operating principles. And there's another working group to examine the GAC's participation in the nominating committee. The nominating committee, which I will explain to you, I'm sure, is one which is seeking to nominate or select new ICANN community members. Every year there's a cycle where board members and advisory, council members on SOs and ECs are replaced, and that NOMCOM doesn't currently have GAC representation. So there's a working group set up to establish whether the GAC should participate in that. There are several issues around that the working group will examine, and when you join a working group, you'll understand what those issues are. And finally, there's a GAC technology task force, which is working primarily on the GAC website. I'm the lead of that task force currently, and that website refresh is currently underway with ICANN staff, but also looks at new tools and new ways of collaborating within the GAC. And that's a task force, which is a little different than a working group. It's an actively working group that is not focused on the ICANN meetings, but actually doing work in between meetings primarily, and working extremely closely with the ICANN staff. This is the ICANN IT staff and the ICANN content staff to ensure that the new GAC website and new GAC collaboration tools are up to scratch and will be available over the next 12 to 18 months. So that's a summary of the working group process in the GAC. Feel free to try and reach me through Albert Daniels. By the way, I'm from Toronto, Tobago, if I didn't say so before, and I hope you have a very productive meeting. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.